Okay, so the next technique we're going to talk about is called distillation. And I actually think distillation is really super cool because distillation is what's used when we are trying to separate out two liquids from each other. And in the definition up at the top at distillation, you see the word miscible. You can make note to yourself if you don't know already that miscible means mixable. Okay, means that they are mixable with each other. So let's say we put something like ethanol with some water and mix them together, and then all of a sudden you said, oh my gosh, I didn't want to mix them together, I wanted them separate. This is a process that you could use to do that. So you'll notice that there's a description there of what the apparatus consists of. The first thing is the distilling flask, or the distillation flask, which is this one right here. And then you have a receiving flask over here, and then you have a condenser. And those are the vital parts of this apparatus. So there's a long description there explaining it again, but let me just kind of go through what's going to happen. So you're going to put your mixture, in this case we said it was the ethanol and water mixture, you're going to put that here in your flask, your distilling flask, and you're going to start to heat it up. Ethanol has a much lower boiling point than water because ethanol has weaker intermolecular forces. So this is going to take advantage of that. And what's going to happen is the ethanol is going to start to evaporate. The water isn't going to evaporate nearly as much because that strong intermolecular force. We're going to get mostly ethanol vapors. Eventually, it will start to boil. What's boiling is only the ethanol. The water that's in there, it doesn't start to boil because ethanol will reach its boiling point at 78 degrees. So at 78 degrees Celsius, you're going to start to get that boiling happening, but it's the ethanol that's actually boiling. So again, you're going to get lots of gas vapor. Now there's a thermometer up here so you can measure the temperature, but the gas will actually travel up this tube and then it'll hang a right and go down into what is called the condenser. Now on the outsides of the condenser, what you see on your paper as the darkened areas, that's actually water that's going to be flowing. You can see here that you put cool water in one end and then the warmer water will come back out. And what that cool water is doing is it's keeping the area between those two pipes cooled down so that as the gas travels into that cooler region, remember it was hot coming up here, okay, but it's going to get into this cooler region and it's going to start to liquefy because those intermolecular forces are going to actually start working again because the temperature has decreased, just like we learned last chapter. So we're going to evaporate it, get it into this tube, and then we're going to condense it, hence why it's called the condenser. So when it comes out over here, you notice it's coming back out as a liquid. So it was a liquid, we vaporized it, then we recondensed it back into a liquid, and then over on this side, you'll end up with just your ethanol, and on this side, eventually, we should have just water. Now, it's not perfect, and there are much more complicated devices, much more complicated distilleries that can do more than this, but this is the basic idea of how it works. Now, I do have a video that we'll watch, and again, it's linked on the bottom of your paper, so you can always go home and watch it as well, or just rewatch this. I'll post this on my website as well. You can use all of those things, but the video will show you the process in action as opposed to just looking at a picture. And also, it's going to tell you different areas that distillation is used, which I think is kind of interesting as well. Just a couple minutes. So hopefully we won't have technical difficulties here. 1 second. I am having technical difficulties because I need to close that. All right. Hopefully.
Distillation. We know that different methods are used for separation of different kinds of mixtures. But do you know how a mixture of two miscible liquids can be separated? Well, such a mixture can be separated by a method called distillation. Distillation is the process of separating miscible components of a mixture that do not decompose upon boiling and have sufficient difference in their boiling points. The process involves heating the liquid until boiling and then capturing and cooling the resultant vapors. The separation of liquids is usually achieved at their respective boiling points. The more volatile component vaporizes at its boiling point and then condenses in the condenser, while the other component is left behind in the distillation flask. Thus, separation of the mixture is achieved. Can you separate a mixture of acetone and water? Yes, it can be achieved by distillation. Let us have a look at the procedure of separation using distillation method. Firstly, Take the mixture in a distillation flask fitted with a thermometer. Observe carefully how the apparatus is arranged. Then, heat the mixture slowly, keeping a close watch at the thermometer. See the acetone vaporizing and then condensing in the condenser. This acetone can now be collected from the condenser outlet. On the other hand, the water is left behind in the distillation flask. Do you know there are several important applications of distillation? Let us discuss a few important ones. Distillation is employed in food processing to produce distilled beverages. Large-scale industrial distillation is widely used in petroleum refineries, petrochemicals, and natural gas processing plants. Production of essential oils and herbal distillate is carried out by steam distillation. In addition to these applications, distillation is also used to separate the mixture of ether and toluene, and the mixture of hexane and toluene.
Okay, so you got to see some applications there, but more what I wanted you to see was their animation of the actual apparatus. They're pretty expensive, they're pretty complicated. I actually used to have one here, and then pieces of it got broken, and unfortunately we can't really do anything with it anymore. But it's really a cool process, because when you have those two liquids mixed together, you think, well, how the heck am I supposed to get them apart? As long as their boiling points are different enough, you'll be able to use this process of distillation.